Good evening. Okay. The notice requirement provided for the open public meeting law has been satisfied. Notice was properly given, said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News on January 12, 2021, as well as posting on the city's website. Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Present.
McKenna,
Present.
McCray,
Present.
Mills Ransom,
Present.
Welch, Vice President Good,
Present.
Council President Hagaday.
Present.
Council President, we have all members present and a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the combined session on October 12th, 2021?
So moved.
Second. No, you don't need a second. That's right. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Noted. The minutes have been approved. We will move first to our discussion items. I have two presentations for this evening. The first one is from Energy regarding our solar panel carports. Is that Esnergy or Energy?
It's supposed to be easy energy.
Easy energy.
Easy Energy.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's supposed to be easy to pronounce.
Z with the Z, right? Just easy energy. Yes.
I guess maybe if it was a dash or something, I would have gotten that. But Easy Energy.
It's not you.
Okay. Well, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay, is it possible for me to share my screen to show the PowerPoint?
It is possible, yes.
So I can share my screen. Okay. Let's see if I can get to the PowerPoint. Where is that? How do I share that? Get to my PowerPoint. Can everybody see that PowerPoint?
Pinch out, you can.
Okay.
Jim,
So
I don't see the PowerPoint. I see an email about another PPA.
We
That's
see
true.
we see Heather's email.
Yeah.
You're
Heather
right.
Bailey.
Oh boy, let's see if I can get out of this. How do I get out of this and get?
We could read it, Mr. Brown, if you want us to.
I'm hoping you can see the PowerPoint. Is that showing up now?
No,
No, the email is still your primary screen. Maybe close that out. That might help.
I think what you did is when you told it to share, you told it to share the email itself. So when you click on that screen share, you should see one that says PowerPoint if you have that PowerPoint presentation open.
How's that?
It's starting. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. James Brown from Easy Energy. And Betsy Clement is our Director of Business Development. She's on here.
Hi.
What you see on the screen is a carport system we did for the Lawrence Township for their police department and also their municipal building. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're proposing for your police department, the captain's area, his parking lot. So it looks similar to that as you see on the screen. And basically the way it works is the solar canopies are on the parking lot. People can park underneath them. The solar system generates energy from the sun hitting it, and it goes into the electric system for the police department, what we're proposing. Why doesn't this go forward here? That's weird. For some reason it's not letting me advance. Oh, there it goes, just slower. So just talk a little bit briefly about our key projects, the master PO, some of the incentives, and go very rapidly just so you understand the overall concept. I know people have seen the PowerPoint before, so if there's any questions, certainly feel free to ask anything you want. On the picture on the screen, that's the DPW for the Willingboro Township DPW building. We did a power purchase agreement for their community center, their library, their DPW building, and their municipal building throughout the city. Easy Energy, we've got over 14 years in business, been a leader in New Jersey for solar systems. We've successfully operated for that many years. We're both a family-owned company. Betsy's my sister. We're woman-owned, and we have a service-disabled veteran as an owner of Easy Energy. We do commercial, government, and residential solar systems. We've done a portfolio of over $170 million worth of systems throughout New Jersey. And we're proud that we were selected as one of the only vendors for the New Jersey Master PO for power purchase agreements. And we have all the certifications necessary to construct projects for cities and towns in New Jersey. We're DPMC certified and Public Works certified. So we have all the credentials. Some of the key projects we're doing right now, doing a lot of school districts. Hackensack Board of Education is underway. Ramsey, the College of New Jersey we're doing. Hillside Board of Education. We're just finishing up a project for Newark Public Schools. And we're under construction at Barnegat Board of Education, Marlboro, a whole bunch of different projects. So we've got the experience to build successful solar projects. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we were named one of the only vendors out of many that bid on the project for the state of New Jersey. It's a master purchase agreement. So local cities like yours and others can purchase off that contract with no further bid required based on your procurement rules. So we're proud of that, to be out of hundreds of vendors, we were selected as one of the only. So that allows you to buy off the system, off the PO with no further requirements. And there's this great incentive program that New Jersey put in place to incentivize solar. So we've registered your city to be able to be eligible for that project, that incentive, I should say, if your project is approved to move forward. So that incentive allows us to put solar into your organizations at no upfront cost, and it saves you money on your electricity. So it's a great incentive program for the residents of New Jersey and cities and towns like yourselves. What is a PPA? Power Purchase Agreement is what it stands for. It's basically an agreement that we put the systems in for free, no upfront cost, and the city just agrees to buy the power from that system, the solar power, for the 15-year term of the contract. And so there's no upfront cost, and you just agree to buy the power at a reduced rate. So you save money and it doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to float a bond or come up with any capital. We basically, our financing partners provide the capital to build the system. And the reason they're doing that, there's all sorts of government incentives to make them want to do that. So they get tax credits and depreciation and things that cities can't take advantage of. So it's a great investment for them, and it's a great thing for the city that you no upfront cost and save you money. Benefits, again, no upfront cost, frees up your budget, and that you have savings, so you can use those savings for other things needed in the city. There's no maintenance costs to the city. The financing company pays for the maintenance for the 15-year term, and immediately you start saving money on your electric for the police department. We had looked at other facilities in the city, but some of them didn't qualify because the roofs were very old and need to be replaced. But we are proposing to both your library and to your MUA as additional places for the city to save money for those organizations that are, situated in part of the city. So obviously you're doing green energy, so it's positive for the city that you're using green energy from the solar system. We do things like outreach to the community. We would attend Earth Days if you have those types of events, community days, those types of things. And I mean, we provide similar systems to residential customers, commercial customers, and nonprofits. We've done churches and community clubs and things like that. So Obviously, we're proposing to you as a city, but we do offer it to other residents and organizations within your city. And a lot of similar programs, no upfront costs and save them money, whether it be a homeowner, business, nonprofit, et cetera. Estimated savings on your system, as you see on the screen. This would be just for the police department, not the MUA and not the library. You basically would be paying 6.7 cents for the electricity from the solar system, and you're currently paying roughly 8.39 cents with the current utility. So over the years, it goes up slightly, 2% a year. It kind of matches where the electric rates from the utility is going up over the history of electricity in New Jersey. So it kind of matches that. Over the over the life of the system, you save roughly $276,000 is estimated for the police department savings alone. I'm going pretty fast. If anybody has any questions, please stop me.
Just go straight through it, and then we'll give opportunity for questions at the end of your presentation.
Great, thank you. This is what we've proposed as a potential for the police department. As you can see, carport canopies over much of the parking lot. Obviously, final engineering and design will clarify this and make it more exact, but that's pretty much how we proposed to do it. And subject to final engineering and approval from your construction office and permitting office and those types of things, but tried to maximize the size that we could offer to get the maximum savings for your police department. The next steps is basically if we get a resolution approved to, approve the negotiations, the signing of the term sheet and PPA document, we can get those in place and then go through the installation process, the engineering and all those things you need to do to build a project. And our goal would be to complete the project by mid next year, July of next year. Again, our summary is Easy Energy. We've been around for 14 years in New Jersey. We're based in Brick, New Jersey. We have excellent references for many governments and many townships. We've done a lot of projects. Timing is good right now because we've registered your city for the maximum incentive that's available right now from New Jersey. And we are veteran-owned, women-owned, and a good company. We have great references from a lot of our customers. And that's our presentation.
Thank you. Do we have
Thank
any questions or comments from council members?
Council President, will we be able to get copies of this particular presentation?
Yeah, and you can ask them. I'm sure that you can
I'll make sure
send that
you get a copy. I have
same
copies.
email.
I'm sorry.
I have copies. I'll make sure everyone gets a copy if they weren't. I thought it would be part of the packet. I thought it was a part of the attachment.
It's on our agenda. It's part of our packet.
Yeah.
Already.
Any other questions for us?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis.
So the city should be seeing savings from this, but if municipalities don't have any upfront costs to build this, like how does your company then make money off of this?
Yes, so the way it works is there's great incentives for private companies to put solar in place. So the way it works is us and the private companies that we work with, the financing companies, immediately off the price of the system, the cost of the system, they get 30% off their taxes off the price of the system. So if it's $1 million system, they get 300,000 off their taxes. They also get to depreciate the system for the remainder. So 70% that they don't get to deduct the first year, the 70% value of the system, they get to depreciate that over 5 years, which is, again, those two things the city can't take advantage of because you don't pay taxes. You obviously collect taxes, but you don't pay taxes. So those two factors are great for the private companies. The third thing they do is they get these incentives from the state. The BPU has an incentive called the TREC, they get those incentives, which are worth $152 for each of the energy generations from the system. They get to sell those to the utilities and generate income there. And then the last thing is they sell you the energy at a lower price than what you're paying now. But those four factors allow them to do it for free, basically, install it for free. And that's how they're able to do it. And the city can't do that because you can't take the tax credit, you can't take depreciation. If you had the capital, and some towns, had extra bond money and were able to buy the system, they can get two incentives. You can obviously save on your electric if you had the capital to pay for the system, and you could sell those T-Recs to the utility and make money, but you only get two of the four incentives. So it is harder to justify it for a public agency. Again, unless you had extra bond money. We had a school district that built a school, and for once the cost came under what they had estimated. So they had money to buy the system. So they bought their solar system because they had to use the bond money anyway, but they would only get the two incentives. They only save energy and get the T-Rec revenues, but they wouldn't get the other two benefits.
Thank you. Also, does this plan to cover the entire parking lot? I think the diagram, it looked like it was just the perimeter of the parking lot. Is it going to be the entire parking lot right behind the police station, as well as the entire parking lot across from the police station?
It's pretty much the parking lot of the police station. And it is in sections, as you saw on the diagram on the picture. If I can go back there, I don't know if I can. See if I can get back to that picture. So you see it, I think it's across the street from the police station, and it's the parking lot behind the police station. You see the picture there. So it's pretty much most of the parking lot is covered over. Pretty much where anybody parks their cars will be covered.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Councilman.
That from me? Just a quick question. I'm looking at the diagram, and I know you said that it probably had to be tweaked a little bit, but I see that it goes over the hill up to the railroad tracks, which is NJ Transit property. And then I see that it goes over, it's hovering over the street, which is where the meter parking is. Is that, am I reading that correctly, or is that just kind of a broad?
Yeah, I mean, it's a proposed solution, and obviously has to be tweaked and look at things like if we're encroaching on the NJ railroad property, we'd have to deal with that and maybe cut back on the size. If there's any objections to covering over the parking that are on the street, then obviously we would have to remove those panels. But it is flexible that we can eliminate rows if there's an issue with it engineering wise or permitting wise or construction wise for the town or the city. But this is just a kind of like the estimate of what the system would look like.
Okay. I mean, I transit would have to weigh in on the hill, the berm there, but I don't necessarily have an issue with it going over the road, because it would provide some, protected parking along that route, as long as it didn't interfere with traffic and trucks and things. But real quickly, so obviously you make money, investors make money off the tax credits and things, and then you're making money because the energy is free because it's coming from the sun, but then you sell it to us. So there's a spiff in there.
Correct.
Right. So you pay off the investment, et cetera, which I totally understand. How does this power transfer? Is it going into batteries, or is it going directly into the power source? And then when it starts to ebb, then regular electricity jumps in, or?
Exactly. Meaning the solar goes all directly into your electric system of the police department. So instead of getting your electricity from the utility, you're getting your electricity, at least during the day, from the solar system. This system doesn't have batteries as part of it because batteries are still pretty expensive. They're coming down, and they can always be added on later. But so what happens is, if it's a really snowy day and the panels are all covered with snow, there'll be some generation, but the utility would pick up the remainder of the electricity that's needed during that particular day. At night, the system automatically transfers back to the electric company. So you're only using the solar power during the day or daylight days. And at night you go back to the grid, and that all happens automatically. So a rainy day, you'll get some of your solar panel power, but not all of it, because the rain, obviously is cloudy and stops the sun from shining. So you get a mixture of both.
So your savings factor has some sort of a statistical formula for number of cloudy days, number of snow covered days.
Yes.
So that savings figure includes what we will be spending with PSE&G for those evening times, cloudy days, snow covered days.
Right. Well, the way it works, it's basically that system that we use. It's called the National Renewable Energy Laboratories PV watts calculator. It takes into account 10 years worth of weather data. So it basically, we plug in our information and it says, okay, based on where this city's located, you're going to be able to generate this much electricity. So that's what the system's going to produce. So instead of getting that electricity from the utility, you're getting from solar. So that statistical information basically is what provides the estimated savings, because it takes in snow days, rain days, and all that stuff and calculates it.
And what's your accuracy with that?
They're pretty good. I'd say 98% accurate was what we've seen over the last 10 years of working with it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a couple questions. So the solar panels that you install, though, they remain your property or they're property of the city?
They remain property of the financing company that finances for us. And at the end of the term, you have options of what you want to do with the systems. There's usually 3 options that they provide. One, you can negotiate a new PPA and have the financing company continue to maintain and run the system for you. Obviously, after 15 years, it'd be a much lower rate than what you're would be paying under this contract. B, you could say, we want to buy that system at fair market value, because at the end of 15 years, it'll be a lot less costly than now. So you could purchase the system and then own it, but then you would have to maintain it and run it. The panels now come with a 25-year warranty, so they would last at least another 10 years. The third option is you say, you know what, and we don't like the way this turned out. We don't like the system anymore. We're going to get newer technology or whatever. You can tell the financing company, we want you to remove the systems and we're going to go do something different. So you have 3 options at the end of the contract to do that.
Councilwoman Davis had a question as well.
Yes, I have 2 questions. You might have answered this with Councilman McKenna, but I'm not sure. Do we get a credit for those days that they are cloudy or like it's snowing and the panels are covered? Do we get a credit there? And then my second question is, if something happens and a panel falls on somebody's car, who is liable for that? Is it the city or is it your company?
Okay, to answer your first question, there's not really any credit for the rainy days or snowy days, but we take that into our calculations of what we estimate the savings to be. But there's really no credit for that. Unfortunately, you would get more energy from the utility than from the lower costs from us in those cases, but we try to factor that in with the estimates. So we use that tool from the federal government to estimate what your savings would be. On your second question, anything that the solar system causes, such as that, a solar panel falling off or something like that, the solar panel owner would be responsible for that. So our financing partner has insurance. They insure the systems, they maintain the system. It's their system. So if anything that system causes, such as that, their insurance would cover that and pay for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council colleagues? The last question, I mean, I know, do you handle any residential or you only do commercial nonprofits, et cetera?
Yeah, we do residential. I know we have similar programs where, no upfront cost and can save people money on their utilities for residential. We have a variety of programs for that. They can purchase it, obviously, which is usually the best investment for a homeowner. But if they don't have the cash, they can get a loan. We have loans, we have leases, and then a PPA product where our financing company owns it and they just get cheaper cost of power. So we do offer similar systems to what we're offering here.
And for those, there is a battery option if somebody wished to pay for a battery, you would install?
Yes, yes, there are options, and it's a little bit longer payback because the batteries do cost a little, more than just having the solar. But that's certainly an option. Batteries can be added to any system. It just adds cost, and it would reduce your savings if you had it as part of a PPA, or if you purchase a system, it would make the payback a little bit longer if you had batteries. But some people do opt for them because they look at it as a backup power source in case there is a power outage. So some people do go for that.
You have any details on the failure rate of the panels, or how often you have to actually use the warranty to replace panels, or et cetera?
Oh, it's amazing. Again, we've been doing it for 14 years, and a handful of panels have been replaced out of thousands and thousands of panels. There's no moving parts in the panels. They're just basically silicon, and they react to the sunlight. So because there's no moving parts, they just keep running. It's amazing. We've had products out there for over 14 years, never been replaced anything. So it's pretty neat.
Okay. All right. There's no other questions. I do thank you.
Thank you very much.
For taking the time.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. We have one other group, the Plainfield Civic Trust, that will have a short presentation as well. The representative from the Civic Trust here.
Yes, I'm here, Gloria Parker.
Hi, Ms. Parker. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gloria Parker. I live here in Plainfield, and I am a trustee with the Plainfield Civic Trust. We would like for our great city of Plainfield to become a civic city, much as Newark has in several other cities in the state of New Jersey, including Patterson, Perth Amboy, and Trenton. They are vying to become civic cities. Please take a look at the very brief video that we have that will give you an idea of what a civic city is. So we do have a video.
A new movement is afoot to empower communities, not to fight City Hall, but to make it a partner.
When we look at the era of the 60s, look at the 70s, what the marches, that was wonderful during that time. Now we need a more progressive model that measures with the 21st century that we're in.
The model has 4 components: civics in the schools, civics in the universities, and online for all residents, associations of interested residents called civic trusts, and an embrace by City Hall of the concept of empowerment.
We began to create a pipeline from a high school to the university to get people to understand civically how they should be engaged.
That's why it's about us as citizens, us as people that face the problems on a day-to-day basis, actually coming forward and making solutions to those problems, putting the power back into our own hands. We can change what we go through on a day-to-day basis. Politics isn't about elected officials. It isn't about the president. It isn't about the Senate. It isn't about the Congress and everything that people make it up to be about. Politics, at its very core, is about people influencing other people to make their community better, to fix a problem that they see within their community.
If your government's not doing something solving your issues, then you have the ability, through your own rights, to change your community, change your government. And when people understand that, that's the right, that's the true power. The people have the power. That's the way our Constitution was actually written.
Saying that I believe that at the heart of civic cities is the recognition that we are intrinsic and moral neighbors.
That's something that I've learned because I've been able to put verbiage to action, okay, and learn a process. But I also met people who have motivated me and inspired me to continue on this path or this journey of change.
Imagine this. Every qualifying 18-year-old in every high school living civics.
Everybody should be engaged in politics and be engaged in civics. And I think I have the power to change that, and everybody should have the power to change that. And I will be exercising that power to the day I die.
Join us. Come on out. The more the merrier. The more the merrier.
Thank you, Caesar. Trustees also work alongside 50 volunteers known as law and policy experts from throughout New Jersey. They help trustees to come up with solutions that must have 3 criteria. One is they must prove that they work. The second is the solution must be cost effective. And the third is the solution must benefit the community as a whole. Someone said to identify a problem is to complain, but to identify a problem and offer a solution is to lead and to better your community. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you one of the law and policy experts who is also a founder of the Citizens Campaign, Mr. Harry Pazaki.
Thank you very much, Gloria. And I want to thank the mayor and Council President Hockaday and the members of the council for giving us this time. My function here right now is just to take you through the problem-solving process that the Plainfield civic trustees and all civic trustees around the country engage in when they work to help their city become better than when they found it. And I'm going to use an example that the Plainfield trustees are going to begin briefing city officials about. So in a way, you're going to get a sneak preview, but they'll be meeting with the police director, the mayor, the leader of the police union, and any council person that wants further advice. This problem that Plainfield trustees are tackling was tackled literally by every civic trust, and we have trusts around the country, when George Floyd was killed. Trustees pick the issues they want to work on in their own city. They are entirely within their own rights to do that. And every one of the trusts said we wanted to address the George Floyd issue. But they very quickly decided that they wanted something more than the one-off solution. Our trustees are 95% economically challenged minority members who live in cities. I live in the city of Perth Amboy myself. And they work with these experts because they do it for free and they commit to serve their city. So we as volunteers, I'm a full-time volunteer, work with these trustees. And I'm going to show you the example of this as it occurred in my city in Perth Amboy. Caesar, will you show a picture of Sam? This is a protest march that occurred. Go back to the first one, Caesar. This is a protest march of over 1,000 citizens in Perth Amboy that occurred right after George Floyd. And it was led by a young woman, if you'll show that picture, Caesar. Her name is Samantha Castro. And Sam was very angry and exercised. She met with the head of the NAACP, and they directed her to the Perth Amboy Civic Trust, where she learned the no blame approach. And she worked with the police chief, with the head of the PBA and the head of the FOP, and with community residents, and began to develop a solution. And as I said, we could take that down, Caesar. They started to research what was really at the source of the problem. If you take them all down, Caesar, that would be fine. Okay, so in their research, they found that across the country, the average training for police officers was 8 hours of force training for every 1 hour of de-escalation training. So in essence, they found that we are training our police officers to have a warrior culture. We're priming them to use force. And so they started to look for solutions. And we have, as Gloria indicated, a law and policy task force. In this instance, we had 2 experts that came to the aid of the trustees. One of them, you may know, he was a former police director from Plainfield, Giles Shipp. The other one is a fellow by the name of Richard Rivera, who is the co-founder of the National Latino Police Officers Association. He's a senior research fellow on policing matters at Seton Hall Law School. And they found that there was a way to prove the benefits of de-escalation. So in their research, they helped the trustees research an article that was researched and published by the International Police Chiefs Association. If you could just show Caesar the article and the results there. This, as you see, the research was done by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And here's the results of the research. De-escalation training, and this was done in a scientific study with a control group. This isn't just anecdotal evidence. 28.1% reduction in use of force incidents. There was virtual elimination of excessive use of force, but this is even permissible use of force. There was a reduction of 28.1%. Reduction in citizen injuries, 26.3%. And an interesting fact, a reduction in police officer injuries of 36%. So if you think about the criteria that Gloria just indicated that trustees work under, the first is the solution has to have evidence that it works. And there's tons of anecdotal evidence and now even scientific study evidence that de-escalation training works. The second is it has to be cost effective, meaning it can't increase the budget. In this particular solution, the cost of the police department dropped dramatically because all police departments put aside a certain amount of money for use of force lawsuits, settlements, and damages. And when you eliminate those costs. And last but not least, it benefits the community as a whole. It benefits the civilian, it benefits the taxpayer, and it benefits the police officer. And that's why Samantha, you can take that down, Caesar. Why Samantha was so successful in working with the police. When she first went to them, there was a lot of suspicion. Let me just tell you then the solution that they came up with. It had 3 parts, and 2 of them can be enacted by the city council. One is it required an annual audit of de-escalation training and other practices in the police department. This is not an audit of the individual officers, has nothing to do with, that's the business of the police director. This is just to keep track of whether there is an increase in de-escalation training. Remember, it was 8 hours to 1 hour use of force training to de-escalation. We want to see the de-escalation go up. The second aspect was that there was a Citizens De-Escalation Advisory Board established. It has only 5 members, 1 who's a youth member in the age of 16 to 20, 2 who are 20 to 30 years of age, and 2 other adults. The other 2 members are police officers who serve ex officio. One must be experienced trainer and the other a community policing expert. They don't vote on the solutions. They simply advise the members of the advisory board who review the annual audit and also take input from anyone, including police officers, on any new de-escalation training or hiring techniques that have evidence behind them. All the members of the advisory board take a course in evidence-based research. This is not them coming up with ideas that they just, pull out of their briefcase. This is something that is very serious. And the idea then is culture change, continuing review of, are we moving from a warrior culture to a guardian culture? And there is the audit and the advisory board to ensure that. The last component can only be enacted by the mayor, and that's a requirement that individual police officers' promotions be tied to their de-escalation performance in accordance with the training they received from the Plainfield Police Department. So that means if the police department is requiring more de-escalation training, the officers will have their promotions reviewed. There'll be other aspects to the review, but one of the aspects would be how well are they performing under the training they're receiving from the department. So that creates a career path toward de-escalation, again, culture change. And that's the idea for the reform. The trustees will provide you with a model ordinance drafted by the Law and Policy Task Force, not meant to be a straitjacket. You can modify it if you wish, if you are interested in adopting it. And they will also provide a draft executive order that the mayor can peruse. I think that the only other thing to say is that this is happening in Plainfield, but it's beginning to happen in cities all around the country. From Newark, Patterson, Trenton, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Charleston, Miami, Chicago, Houston, Seattle. Many of the colleges are starting to serve as bases to train all the citizens in the community to work with their elected officials in a no-blame fashion. Many of the historically Black colleges are already coming aboard. Howard, North Carolina A&T, Prairie A&M. We're meeting with the president of Spelman next week. And so this is a movement basically to empower citizens to take personal responsibility in their communities. And we'd like to work with the mayor and the council. I did speak with Mayor Mapp earlier to let him know that we were coming in, and to let him know that if there are issues the council or the mayor are grappling with and they need research and they need the trustees to become involved, they can refer them there. The trustees pick their own issues, so it's up to them. They can only do so many, but they're there to help and be a constructive part of the city. And we thank you for your time and listening to us. And Gloria and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Thank you for that presentation. At this time, how many trustees do you have in Plainfield?
Gloria, what do you say, about a dozen? Gloria, you're muted. You're muted. You got to turn your microphone.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me. It's about 12 members.
Yeah, we top out at 24. It's just starting in Plainfield. Newark was the first, has a full 24. Perth Amboy has a full 24, and so on. Patterson, Philadelphia, and the like. Plainfield is coming on strong now. We are teaching the leadership training in Plainfield High School. I've been doing it there for a number of years. Started a long time ago with Jeff Truitt. If any of you know Jeff, he's now become a lawyer. But at any rate, that's the program, and we're here to help, and I hope that we've made clear what we do. But again, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, I think you're playing a valuable part in democracy and fairness and community involvement. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I noticed that you already had, or you already have model legislation with respect to de-escalation training and so forth. Is there other hot button issues that you are prepared to offer proposed legislation or resolutions for?
Yeah, again, we don't pick the issues. The trustees pick them. If it's empowerment, there are a lot of nonprofits. They come with their own solution. They tell the people, now you pass it. We think that the solutions are better informed if they're developed by the citizens who are impacted by the problems. So we have a national solution sharing platform, and it has dozens of solutions in education, environment, cost savings, public safety, and so on. And they're made available and shared across the country. Our vice chair is Jim Johnson. I don't know if anybody remembers Jim. He ran for governor last time, finished second to Murphy in the primary, and he was a city. Pardon me?
Was it Jay Johnson?
Jim Johnson.
Yeah,
Jay was a Homeland Security guy. Jim was actually Undersecretary of the Treasury, and then he became city attorney in New York City. And he's now spreading these solutions to other city attorneys for major cities around the country. But to give you an up-to-date, what most of the trustees this summer started to ask about was climate change. We had 100-degree heat waves. We've done some preliminary research. There's a good tree canopy can reduce temperatures by 10 degrees in an urban center, but there's 40% less tree cover in the economically challenged minority neighborhoods across the board. So they're looking at ways of doing that. They're looking at ways of buying energy in bulk and specifying the amount of renewable energy. They work very effectively on COVID. In Plainfield, we worked with one of our law and policy task force members is a Dr. Stanley Schwartz from the Rutgers School of Public Health. And we developed quarantine kits for Plainfield. So when people don't have master bedrooms or can't go to a hotel to quarantine, they got a kit with all the masks and disinfectants and plastic utensils and everything they needed to be as safe as was humanly possible in a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom and lots of people living. So, those are the kind of things. But again, there may be things that you have ideas about. The trustees, they pick their own, and they usually just try and work along and help with the issues that you're grappling with.
So our trustees in Plainfield picked the de-escalation issue as their top issue?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, their next one is they want to make now mandatory the civics education, because Newark did that. There's nobody who graduates from Newark High School without our leadership training. We wrote a book called Citizen Power, is published by Rutgers Press. We provide all of this for free. We don't charge for anything. We really are committed to trying to heal the American community and resurrect the values of mutual respect and unselfish service.
Councilman McKenna?
I was mostly interested in hearing from Ms. Parker about the local initiatives, and Harry mentioned the de-escalation. Are you working on just the 2 now, or do you have a few that and I know it's hard to work on too many at one time.
Well, we're just getting started. So we're really highlighting the de-escalation, but we're also working with the school system. We're trying to come up, in a previous meeting, the Newark school system was able to get help with, when we were doing virtual with the youth, as our students were doing virtual schooling. A lot of questions came about that a lot of people were not trained, as far as having people who were trained in IT to help with these situations that was being brought up in reference to the school districts. Newark was able to get that. That's one of the issues that came up into the Newark school system, and they were able to get help with that just by bringing up the issues that were going on. They were able to get something passed with the state, and also it went to Washington, D.C., and they were able to get whatever that was going on help with within 72 hours. So there are different.
What Gloria is referring to is the trustees help each other from city to city, and Newark found a way to get free training for IEP students in STEM work from companies that provide that kind of free training. And now we're trying to get it to the other trusts so the kids can catch up because of the COVID gap, especially the IEP kids.
Additional questions from council members?
I think
Ms. Parker, you said it was 12 trustees currently now. Are they residents in the city of Plainfield?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
If you know of other residents that care about serving their city and maybe just don't want to run for office, but would like to make a contribution, it's wide open to anybody that wants. They just have to pledge to the No Blame Pledge, which is they pledge to leave their city better than they found it by pursuing practical solutions instead of pointing fingers and assigning blame. Once they make that pledge, we provide the training, we provide the experts, they pick the issues, we work together to help our country along.
And they cross over. A trustee here could assist in another municipality.
They do that quite
often. They all
often.
work together, okay.
Yeah, they have sharing platforms. In fact, I'll sign off by saying this. If anyone would like to join us, we have a national celebration of citizen leaders this Wednesday. It will be live streamed on YouTube. If we can send a link to the council president or clerk and have it distributed. It's a half-an-hour show, and you'll see trustees from around the country. You'll see college presidents from around the country. I don't know if any of you know Buster Soares. He was one of our trustees. He's on our board, and Buster is advocating. We started the Civic Trust in the basement of First Baptist of Lincoln Gardens, Buster's church, before he retired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's quite a few individuals watching this meeting now, so if they're interested, let people know how they can look you up.
All they need to do is go online to thecitizenscampaign.org, and you'll see how you can become a member of what we call the National Citizen Leadership Service. And if there's a problem with that, you can call my number or at the headquarters there, 732-494-3500. And but you should get most of it right off the website. All of our training is there, and it's for free for any citizen, even if they just want to learn about their powers and they don't have the time to participate yet.
Sounds good. All right, well, thank you very much for a great presentation, and hopefully it leads to more.
Mr. President.
Oh, you have a question? Go right ahead.
I would just like to say how impressed I am with that. And I'm very familiar with the players you had there for Newark. I taught the mayor, and I know that if Raz is dealing with that, you're pushing it, and it's positive. I would really like to just probably be on the Wednesday thing and see some materials. I mean,
All right,
really
we're going to get you the link so you can take a look at it, and please go on our website. Sign up as a student. You can get everything for free.
All right.
We'll get it.
I love education, so no problem. Okay.
Wonderful. All right. Well, again, thanks again for your participation here, and we look forward to hearing from you and working with you.
Well, thank you for your service. It takes a lot of guts to serve these days, so thank you very much. We'll send you the materials, and look forward to being with you again soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night.
All right, with presentations being done, we'll next move to the consideration of public hearing, second reading and final passage. Clerk, please read MC 2021-35 and certify that it is complied with all statutory publication requirements.
MC 2021-35 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16 Vehicles and Traffic, One-Way Streets of the Municipal Code of the City of Plainfield, New Jersey, 1972, is hereby certified that the notice of the public hearing on this ordinance was published in the Courier News on October 20th, 2021.
Okay, we will open up the floor to any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance specifically. See, it's a few people that have raised their hand, but they raised their hand before we even announced this item. So we want to just ensure that individuals are speaking regarding this ordinance. Okay, I see Mr. Priano. You have the floor, Mr. Priano. Name and address for the record.
Timothy Priano, 1405 Martine Avenue. This is wonderful that we have East Fifth Street opening again, but how will we get the word out to the public? We have a lot of people that really don't understand the word "do not enter" and "stop." So will we have patrol out there when we first initiate this so that we have flow going on and then people understanding that they can travel that way, because it has been so many years with it one way? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll have either Captain Guarino answer that. You can answer it a little later. I want to give the public their respect by letting them all go. But catalog that question so we can answer that question, either Director Dabney or Captain Guarino, okay? Who's next in the queue to speak?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay, may I have a motion to close public hearing on this ordinance?
Moved.
Second.
Second, okay, and may I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on second reading and final passage?
We haven't voted on closing it.
Excuse me,
We still have to vote on closing it. You got a first and a second.
first and a second, you wanna, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, it is closed.
Council President, maybe something's wrong on my end, but I thought it was a motion to close. Public comment on that particular.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Mhm.
We just closed the public hearing on that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Because I'm in and out right now with my, I lost you guys and I had to log back in, so it's kind of staticky right now, but I apologize. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries.
Mhm.
Captain Guarino, or Director Dabney, you want to address the question that we had? I thought that was
Yes, Council President. And that was a good question. We'll work in conjunction with the police department to make sure we have the proper truck signage set up so folks will know that it's a two-way street going forward when it happens, and to make sure from a safety standpoint that they know that they can go both ways, both directions. So we'll make sure we monitor that and watch and put out some type of notice to everyone going forward. It's going to be happening with the street.
okay.
From one way to a two-way.
All right, thank you. All right, may I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on second reading and final passage? And if adopted, the ordinance shall be published as required by law.
Moved.
Second,
Okay, clerk, can I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes. Council
President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Okay. 221. All right. I will now move to public comments limited to resolutions, motions, and ordinances to be introduced on first reading. Total of 30 minutes has been allocated for this. If you wish to be heard, hit the hand icon. You'll be unmuted, give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor is now open. This is for resolutions to be considered this evening
And ordinances.
and ordinances. Okay, Mr. Priano, name and address for the record. You have the floor is yours.
Timothy Priano, 1405 Martine Avenue, Plainfield. Again, I'll go back to the subject of notifying the public. We're looking at all these ordinances for reduced hours, no parking. Unfortunately, Plainfield has a habit of not putting signs in Spanish on the streets. We're very English oriented, and we're putting all these no parking signs out there. And I understand that 70% of our population is Spanish. The younger people can read English, but the older ones who do have their license are not reading these signs because they don't read the English language. Is it possible when we start to do these introductions of traffic things that we start to put something in a bilingual area? I know it's going to cost us more, but we should be able to get grants because we are an urban area and we have the ability to express ourselves and make sure that we can do bilingual information on the streets also. It's very hard for a Spanish person to come into Plainfield and only say English when our population has a Latin base. I know it would just be fair to everyone out there that we have this. Second, should I go back out or come back in for other ones?
No, you have 3 minutes to
Okay.
speak about resolutions and ordinances this evening.
I am speaking on part of MC 2021-42. I've only worked private my entire life. I've never worked for the public. My public has always been for nonprofit. I find it very difficult to understand with the services that we receive in our city and the lack of communication from our city that something would be put on the table to ask for salaries increase when our population is still not back to work 100%. Unemployment is down in Plainfield. People are still trying to struggle with their day-to-day life. And we can see it because we're still giving out food to everyone, that an ordinance is put up for the mayor and the council to have increases in their salaries. Listen, I don't mind anybody getting a raise, but we have to have our hearing checked because there's a lot of people that aren't making it today. And are we just trying to push out all the poor people out of Plainfield one by one by raising the taxes so high and showing that your salaries are getting larger? I think it's unfair and unjust for the population that has lived here their whole lives, and now they have to worry about additional cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldstein, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Alan Goldstein, 939 Madison Avenue. I'll jump in where Mr. Priano left off. I mean, we've just been coming out of a pandemic slowly. I mean, we've never been a necessarily high income town. In fact, our median household income here, which means there is many households below as above, a couple of years ago was only about 56,000 plus a little bit. I don't feel comfortable with part-time employees, making that kind of money. We have a part-time mayor and a part-time council. And for all the good things that have been done, there's been an equal amount of bad things being done as well. And it all sort of balances out. I'd be happy if the mayor's salary was rolled back to $60,000 and the city council stays the same, and increases would happen statutorily. And we'd be looking as a main factor at what that median household income is in town. Of course, if there's truly a renaissance, then certainly that should be rising, and good economy will hopefully raise all boats. That hasn't been the case. Things have gotten worse over the decades, but I think you need to take that into consideration. People are worrying about their income, they're worrying about inflation, and I think it's high time to be cognizant of that. The magnitude of the raises a couple of years ago was pretty intense. Now, I want to just address in relation to this, that since the mayor took office in 2014, he has brought in three people into this city, three companies or one individual, former executive director of the PMUA, Lurch, Vinci, and Higgins, the financial consultants, and McManaman in Scotland. And between the three of them, those were three of the main ringleaders of corruption over there. And for that reason alone, I don't think this council or any of the people who were on previous councils that let this happen deserve raises. And I'll leave it at that. But go back to the situation with the people here in town and their financial situation, and don't, be living, as if you have platinum tastes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wyatt, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
Richard Wyatt, 826 Wadsworth Avenue. All right, I first would like to publicly congratulate Mayor Adrian O'Mapp on his victory in the general election and on becoming the first three-term mayor in the city of Plainfield. While his victory last week was not a surprise to most, neither is his proposal immediately following the election to give himself a salary increase. Deja vu is the feeling that one has lived through the present situation before. Oh, but this is not a feeling. Sadly, it's a reality that serves as a reminder that a leopard never changes his spots and a snake only sheds his skin to become a bigger snake. Plainfield, it has been time to cut your grass and see these self-serving leaders for who they really are. Remember this night, the next time they slither to your door and ask for your vote. However, I digress, and in the words of Napoleon, never interrupt the opposition when they are making a mistake. Thank you for your time, Council.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Wyatt, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
Connie Wyatt, 826 Wadsworth Avenue, Plainfield, New Jersey, 07063. So I just have a question basically surrounding this issue directed to Mayor Mapp and the City Council with regard to why you all feel like you are deserving of a salary increase after you've already gotten one. You know, that one shouldn't have passed in the first place, but here we are again, where you're putting it forth that you have a second increase. And I think the public should have an explanation as to why you feel like you deserve it. So maybe you're going to give us that explanation at the end of this meeting. And if that is forthcoming, then I appreciate that. But I just feel like before you guys put out a request to increase your salaries for a second time, you have to show and prove. So show us the reason why you feel like you deserve it. And then maybe we could get a better understanding as to what this is all about, because it just seems a little bit redundant. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. But that's really just all I have to say. I'm looking forward to your answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Kara, name and address, Kira. Name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Nakira Sherman Billen, 1209 Central Avenue. I just disagree with the pay raise for everyone on the council, including the mayor. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Janice, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Yes, Janice Fleming, 521 Woodland Avenue. So I really would like to thank all of you all for your commitment to our city. Seriously, thank you. Thank you for the job that you are doing. But I do not agree with the proposed salary increases for the mayor or council members. So let's look at the measures. Let's look at, are we meeting our indicators? So if we look at the master plan, right? Are we hitting any of those milestones? What justifies the salary increases? There needs to be some accountability. And while I know what you do is difficult and it's time consuming, and I thank you for your public service, but you agreed to do it. Thank you for that, but you agreed to do it. And I think that we have to keep in mind that it's a public job and that sometimes compensation doesn't always match the requirement of the job or the difficulties in executing it successfully, but show us how it's warranted. Like I said, quality indicators. Let's get a report card out there so we all can see just exactly what you feel. And then maybe one day then we will appreciate it and we'll be able to agree with the salary increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
I'm taking Mr. Campbell's spot. This is Wilma Campbell.
No problem.
1404 Highland Avenue, Plainfield, New Jersey. As a person who served 12 years in public service for an entity that was had a much larger budget, I find myself quite confused about why the mayor would justify a raise for his part-time position and for the part-time positions that the council serves. Unless I have a different copy than what everybody else has, what I have gives no indication of what the amount is for the increase. Is it $1? Is it $2? Is it 10? I would think that with something like this, more information would be provided. I can say from the top, I wouldn't support it, but I think the public deserves to have more complete information. The ordinance that I'm reading says, amending the schedule of salaries and wages adopted pursuant to Article 14, Chapter 11 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plainfield, New Jersey, 1971, in parentheses, mayor, council member salary. How much? And when I look at people who work in positions, there's usually an appraisal or an assessment of performance before increases or raises are given. I'm still baffled by this whole thing, and I will just say again, I couldn't support it. I absolutely unequivocally could not support a raise for the council and a raise for the mayor. It's, I think, totally inappropriate. Thank you.
You're welcome. Darrell Morgan, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Darrell Morgan, 943 Hillside Avenue, Plainfield, New Jersey. Again, I'm gonna speak on the raise as well, but I want to go from, a hot button issue under the president's term. I like that. During the primary was the pay that the frontline workers of the PMUA was receiving, that they were underpaid and they weren't being compensated for the work they were doing. And that's an issue that was never addressed by the mayor or any of you individuals as well. But we've gone past that to giving you guys raises, but we never really dealt with that. Now I'm fully aware of the alleged or proposed dismantling of the PMUA, but in the time frame has not been set or anything like that. So therefore, there's still an issue with those gentlemen and ladies working in the front lines for the PMUA who are not receiving fair wages at this time right here. And no one addressed it during the primary elections. And we've seen this just jump right over that to, you guys receiving raises. I don't know if all you guys agree with getting raises for yourselves or not, but we really need to deal with that first. The PMUA workers, the frontline workers, the garbage takers, the guys working on Rock Avenue, the ladies and gentlemen working in the offices, and use your authority to make sure those employees are being fairly compensated for what they're doing and been doing for the city for quite some while at a reduced rate. Now, I understand that we want to dismantle it, but we have to keep in mind that a lot of the people who are working for the PMUA are Plainfield employees and they need to stay employed. So if we're thinking about going to private contractors or things like that, we need to keep in mind that these individuals still need to be employed or downsizing. I know you guys a few months ago voted to give the mayor autonomy on, I know I said that wrong, laying people off. So, we really got to be conscious of what we're doing first and foremost. I'm not going to say you don't deserve a raise. I'm not sure what you do, so all the way sure what you do. And I don't want to be disrespectful in no way, shape, form, or fashion. But before we look to give, you ladies and gentlemen, raises, we need to look to see what's going on with the salaries.
Mr. President, the speaker's time is up.
I definitely appreciate your comments, Mr. Morgan. Okay, all right, Mr. Wilkinson. Name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Maurice Wilkerson, 1420 Vivian Street, Plainfield, New Jersey. I'm going to speak on the pay raise as well. I'm going to make my comment, even though I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. But when I ride around this city and when I pay attention to what's going on, the mayor, the council, none of you are deserving of this pay raise. Your performance, mediocre at best. Ordinances affect the people. Y'all don't pay attention to the struggles that people go through, their livelihoods. Y'all talked about laying people off not too long ago, but now y'all in position for this pay raise. That's a bunch of BS to me. I suggest the mayor take a pay cut. He makes more than enough money, part-time and full-time. So he's not struggling. He's very well off. The council, some of y'all are well off. It's time to go back to the drawing board and get to the basis of this thing, because y'all ripping the people off and robbing the city blind. And I'm gonna leave it at that. But y'all time coming and y'all time almost up.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Kuntz, name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Sharice Kuntz, 141 McKinley Place in Plainfield. I too will be speaking on the ordinance MC 2021-42. I am all for folks earning a sustainable wage. And I understand, I can understand the amount of time that each of you have to spend as a city councilor and what the time that the mayor has to spend at his job. But I just like to also remind everyone, or remind all of you guys, that this is a part-time job, that it's a job that you put yourself out there for. We are a town of folks who are struggling. The people in this town are struggling. I actually drove down my street. I see a young man sleeping on the corner of Berkman and 2nd Street. People in this town are struggling, and you're looking to give yourselves some big raises. I'm having a problem with that. I'm having a problem also with the timing. It seems very suspect that this is coming out right after the election. I know this is the second time. I believe the last time that we went through a salary increase discussion was after the election in 2017. So I've made myself a tickler that the next time that elections come around, this is going to be a point that I talked to Mayor Mapp about, because I'm sure that he'll be running for a 4th term. But it's something that I'd like to hear before Election Day. But I'd just like to remind all of you that residents in this town are struggling. They're struggling just to make ends meet. And I'd like you to make sure that you keep that in mind and consider that when you are approving or voting on a salary increase of this magnitude for yourselves and for the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spellman, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Jeff Spellman, 1151 Gresham Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I as well speak against the pay raise for the mayor and the council. I tried to be very proud of my city. I tried to utilize my city. I tried to utilize the downtown for shopping, as well as the South Avenue corridor. For the years before I was a coffee shop owner, I worked in the corporate world where pay increases were always tied to performance. Performance was related to results against goals and objectives. It maybe just as an example that shows where I think that we're underperforming is I'm feeling that especially our downtown is in a state of terrible disrepair. I brought some neighbors, I advocated some neighbors to come down to the second of the food truck festival. We parked some blocks away, and just walking in a couple blocks, my neighbors felt unsafe, and we were embarrassed to be in our city. The sidewalk was treacherous. The lights were burned out along the way. the garbage cans that were wrapped with Positively Plainfield were overflowing. And we noted that the Positively Plainfield pictures were stock photos and not even photos of our Plainfield residents or our Plainfield gems. When we got to the food truck festival, we found a large group of city workers with Positive Plainfield t-shirts on, all taking pictures and photos of and selfies of each other, as opposed to walking around and observing what was really going on in these blocks. Since I've closed my coffee shop in Plainfield and I'm spending a lot of time in Rahway, I have a good comparison. When I'm in the morning there, I see the street garbage cans picked up 6 days a week. I see the streets swept on a regular basis. I see people under the train tracks around the train station actually scrubbing sidewalks, picking up garbage. The other morning, I saw a public works person in a vest. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was there early before the sun came up so he could monitor street lights and take note of the pole numbers to get them replaced. I find any of these things only happen in Plainfield after considerable complaints and can never get done and can never be coordinated across the departments. What I'm finding in this other city where I'm enjoying to work now is there's just a due diligence in the day-to-day activities to run the city. I understand we have a lot of focus on new development. That's exciting. It brings new money, brings a lot of fanfare, but I think we miss a lot on the day-to-day activities of running the city. And I would encourage all of you just to take a walk and pick any one block of downtown. And it's just disreputable and it's getting worse. And I don't see the things happening there. The other thing I see in the other city is both the council members and department heads walking around downtown. They know the businesses, they know the business names, they ask for opinions, they take feedback, they incorporate it. I don't see these things happening in Plainfield. I want to see these things. I'd love to see.
Council President, speaker's time is up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spellman. Comments were well received.
Council President, just to note, we have approximately 8 minutes left for public comments on resolutions and ordinances. And there is another general public comments at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rain, name and address for the record.
823 East 7th Street, Plainfield, New Jersey. I have been a resident off and on over 60 years in Plainfield. And it is a shame that the way Plainfield has come to today with the garbage that's around and the debris and furniture. It's a far cry from what I grew up in. But also I'd like to piggyback on the you getting a raise, and there was money sent to from the government to pay the city employees, the ones who were the first responders and coming into work, and that has not been dispersed. And even if that isn't dispersed, the people who came to work during the pandemic, also the city employees, I'm sure they could use a raise, that they haven't gotten a good raise in a long time. And also with you getting a raise, they gave us a raise with our Social Security, and you guys are going to be taking it in taxes for real estate taxes. If you don't do it this year, it'll probably be next year. And it's a concern for all seniors. And I do hope that you are returning to in-person council meetings, because it's very hard for seniors to know what's going on through virtual, because most of them don't have computers or smartphones. Thank you for your time, council.
Thank you. Marie, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
Marie and Sari, Chung Avenue. I applaud what all of the fellow residents said just before this. As far as the time limit on something this important where residents are speaking up, I really think the time for public speaking should be extended. There is a perception that only selected few get the attention of this administration. These are elected positions. They are not employed positions. There is also a perception that when the time to vote comes, it's going to go through, because that's what this administration has deemed will happen. And I encourage everyone to look at the October meeting where there was an attempt to provide data for an ordinance, a resolution that was passing right in the middle of that data presentation. Mr. Mapp interrupted and pushed for the vote. Again, not based on data. So when we're talking about performance evaluation, that certainly comes into play. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Virgo, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Hockaday. 920 Sherman Avenue, Plainfield, 07063. I'll be brief. I'd also like to just echo the sentiments of everyone who's spoken thus far. I appreciate the commitment that each of you have made to our city and to the people of Plainfield, and I certainly mean no disrespect in my forthcoming comments. But for those of us who have entered into the sphere of public service, most of us have done so because we want to serve, not for financial gain. A quarter of our town lives in poverty. We have severe issues with food insecurity, with safety, and in addressing the needs of those without addresses. Most of my neighbors have also consistently complained that it's very difficult to connect with members of our city government, that there's a lack of communication and a lack of transparency. So I think the proposal for salary increases is quite frankly despicable, especially when these proposals are consistently brought forth immediately after elections. Again, I respect the work that each of you do, but I do not respect a request for salary increases, especially in our current financial constraints. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Fish, name and address for the record. I'm gonna try to get in as many people as possible.
Sonia Holloway Fish, 1465 Brentwood Terrace, Plainfield, New Jersey. I agree with the previous members of Plainfield about the increase in salaries for the mayor and the councilman. I disagree. I've been here a short time. I came from another town, such as the guy was talking before, where things were much better compared to when I moved to Plainfield. I've only been here about 3 years. And in the 3 years, I've seen an increase in my taxes and not an increase in what I'm getting for my money. And it's very discouraging and disappointing. And like the previous people have said, even the downtown area, it is a little scary compared to where I came from. Even I have brought family relatives because I have no family in Jersey. And I brought family when they come to visit me downtown, and they are a little weary about going downtown. Also, I wanted to make a statement about the PMUA. I know that they're planning to dismantle it. And I do have concern for the workers because I greet my trash collectors, and they're nice people. And I don't want them to be out of work. But at the same time, I think it's a management issue that there needs to be some type of checks and balances with the management of the organization. And if that could be done, I think the people that are working under PMUA, can continue to work and earn a living. For those that are unfortunate if they do lose their job because of this. I don't think they should suffer as a result of mismanagement. Thank you.
Thank you, and I certainly agree with that statement. Mr. Scruggs, name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi. My name is James Scruggs. I am 125 Lafayette Place in Plainfield. Longtime Plainfield resident, left, came back. I also am not in agreement of the rate hike. I was looking at TAP in Plainfield, and it seems as though from 4 years ago, Mayor Mapp has more than doubled his salary, and the city council is more than doubling their salary as well. And I'm just wondering, as a resident, what am I getting for that? I am really fortunate in that I have Councilman Good as my councilman, and when I reach out to him, he does respond. I've reached out to Sean, and he responds as well. But the wheels of progress move slowly here. There's issues that I have that I'll talk about later. But what I'm curious about, and excuse my ignorance, but I haven't heard a single person say, "Yay, I'm so glad you guys are getting raises." You know, I have not heard anyone say that. Everybody's basically against it, and I'm assuming that you are going to vote for yourself to get the raises. And I feel like I can ask a question right now and I will probably not get an answer. So I don't know how this process works. It doesn't seem terribly fair that you get to vote for your own raises when you're hearing from the public saying that, you know, there's not a whole lot of support for you getting these raises. And excuse my ignorance again, because I don't know how this works. I feel like you're going to listen to us. And when I finish talking, you're going to say thank you. You're going to move on and you're going to vote and you're going to give yourself raises. And that doesn't really feel like democracy to me. But thank you for letting me speak. And just to be honest, I feel like I'm just talking in a vacuum because I feel like, you know, you're going to be polite, and thank you for being polite to everyone. I didn't notice that. I'm going to get a thank you and basically ignored. But thank you for letting me speak.
Council President, we've gone through all the time for public comments. There is, again, another public comments at the end of the meeting.
Council President, a motion to just extend for the last two people that had their hands up. Which looks like it'd be 3 minutes plus one for the interchange, say 8 minutes.
Council President, can I offer a legal opinion on this matter?
Sure.
In prior councils, we ran into a terrible problem of extending time when it suited the council based on a particular issue. At that point, we sought to create uniform policies to ensure that with the rules we had, we stuck to, regardless of the issue, regardless of whether or not the speakers were for or against an issue or agreed with a council person or were against a council person, that in the interest of a uniform policy, in the interest of adhering to the First Amendment, we would keep to our rules. And the council over the last few years has done just that. There is, as you mentioned, as the clerk mentioned, another opportunity at the end of the meeting to speak on this matter again. And this matter will also come forward on second reading so that every individual who wishes to speak can speak before the final vote. So to avoid the First Amendment issues that we had in prior councils, it is my recommendation that when we adopt rules, we adhere to our rules. So for that reason, I recommend that we move on. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
The motion is still there. I'm not going to change it.
Okay. Is there a second on the motion? Hearing none, the motion fails. You know, I certainly was tempted to just allow the individuals who are in the queue to speak, you know, because this is something that's of public import. But I do find the uniformity that the council suggests as compelling. And there is an opportunity for the individuals to speak at the end of the meeting. And again, there is another meeting where, you know, that if it passes today, that there'll be another meeting for it to be read on second reading and final passage. So there will be other opportunities for the community to continue to chime in on this, both in this meeting and also in the next meeting, another 2 opportunities. So we'll stick with the rule as established, and I'll invite anybody who still has their hands up now to put their hands up at the end of the meeting, and they'll have an opportunity to discuss this issue further. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to close public comment on motions and resolutions and ordinances to be introduced on first reading.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
One in favor? Okay. One in opposition, I'm sorry. It's Councilman McKenna. Okay, public hearing is now closed. All right, so we'll move to resolutions. Are there any questions of resolutions 325-21? Hearing and seeing none, may we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Okay, resolution 325-21 is approved. Mr. Clerk, would you please proceed with the reading of the resolutions?
Resolution 32621, authorizing advice and consent to the appointment of Maria Baldion to the Cultural and Heritage Commission.
Any questions from council members? We have a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 37221, authorizing the renewal of a contract with Delta Dental.
Any questions from council? We have a motion and a second.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution 328.
Sorry, Ms. Council President, make a motion to consolidate R 328-21 through R 330-21.
Motion's on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, can I have a roll call? Well, actually, I'll just do all in favor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, those are consolidated. I'll accept a motion on the consolidated motions. Motion and a second.
So moved.
All those in, can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, the consolidated resolutions are now approved. Continue, Mr. Clerk.
Resolution 33121, authorizing the extension of a lease agreement between the City of Plainfield and the Historical Society of Plainfield.
Any questions from council members? Do we have a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 33221, approving residency waiver for Anand Verma.
Do we have any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Unanimously approved.
Resolution 33321, authorizing transfers between the calendar year 2021 appropriations of the general fund of the City of Plainfield.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So are we saying, I just need clarity on where we're moving money from and where we're moving money to? So are we moving money from communications and audit and control to the list of other salary and wage options?
Yes, from in the 2 columns on that resolution.
Mr. West?
Yes, we're moving it from media and communications and audit and control to all of those organizations shown above that. Those that are shown in the 2 column.
Thank you. Also for information technology, we're transferring 16,000 in salary and wages, and for corporate transferring 40,000 in operating expenses. Can you just kind of explain like where those items are coming from? And for the salary and wage one, when do we know that we need it? Is that for like overtime that's already been done, or is this projected for the rest of the year?
For the information technology item, there was a correction made with regard to a salary, and that had to be adjusted because we found that the person wasn't being paid at the correct rate. So we fixed that. With regard to corporation counsel, there have been resolutions brought forward from corporation counsel talking about the need to provide additional legal services. So what we're looking to do there is make sure that we can pay for the services that we require under the office of the corporation counsel.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from council members? Do we have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Unanimously approved.
Council President, motion to consolidate R 334-21 to R 338-21.
Let's see, taxes. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? The motion to consolidate passes. Clerk, and a motion and a second on the consolidated resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Consolidated resolutions are approved.
Council President, just for the record, those were refunds for taxes due to 100% disabled veteran exemptions from 334.21 to 338.21. And those were unanimously approved. Moving on to resolution 339.21, which is authorizing approval to accept state funds and participate in the body worn camera state grant program.
Any questions from council members? We have a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 340.21, authorizing approval to enter into a 5-year contract with Axel International.
Any questions from council members? Motion and a second, please.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 341.21, authorizing approval for a change order request of the contract submitted by Billy Contracting and Restoration.
Do we have questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? That's approved.
Resolution 342.21, authorizing a contract to Absolute Fire Protection.
Any questions from council member colleagues? We have a motion and a second.
Moved, Council President.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Approved.
Resolution 343.
Council President, if I may just offer an amendment to consolidate R 34321 and R 34421, because they are both contract reductions to previously approved expenditures.
343 and 344.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second to that consolidation motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The motion to consolidate is approved. And can we have a motion to approve the consolidated motions?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Consolidated motions are approved.
Resolution 34521, authorizing approval for the city of Plainfield to enter into a 15-year power purchase agreement with Easy Energy LLC.
Any questions from council members? I entertain a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution 34621, authorizing the award of a contract to Fagon Electrical Contractors.
Questions from council member colleagues? We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution approved.
Resolution 34721, authorizing approval for a street opening at 423 through 25 Orchard Place.
Any questions from council members? I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Approved.
Council President, motion to consolidate 348-21 with through 350-21.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, the consolidation of 348, 349, and 350-21 is approved.
Motion to approve the consolidated resolutions.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Consolidated resolutions are approved.
And Council President, for the record, 348 were lien placement for property cleanup. 349 was to submit grant application for open space. And 350 was submission of the acceptance of a community development block grant. Moving on to resolution 351, I believe the director would like to request that the council withdraw this resolution. Is that correct, Director Brown?
That's correct.
Okay, so can we have a motion to withdraw this resolution?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The motion is withdrawn.
Resolution 35221, authorizing the execution of the First Amendment to the redevelopment and land disposition agreement between the city of Plainfield and PL 836 Plainfield LLC.
Any questions from council members? We have a motion and a second.
Moved.
All those in favor? Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions?
No.
One opposition. It's Councilwoman McKenna. The resolution is approved.
Resolution 35321, authorizing a waiver of the residency ordinance for Dr. Victoria S. Stewart.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Right ahead, Councilwoman Davis.
Director Brown, how many people applied for this position? And of those, how many of them were Plainfield residents?
Thank you for that question, Councilwoman. We've had a total of 3 who applied, including the individual asking for a waiver. and 2 of them were Plainfield residents. But Dr. Stewart met all of the requirements in addition to having the PhD in that subject area.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? The resolution is approved.
Resolution 35421, authorizing the award of a contract to Storage Engine.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So I see that we are looking to store city documents. What documents in particular are we looking to store with this company?
So, thank you, Councilman Davis, for that question. This is part of our overall digitization project. We previously did documents in the clerk's office. We did documents in.
Is anybody else having a hard time or is it just me?
Yes.
A little choppy.
Yeah, it is.
Director, I could speak to this.
Better.
It's for documents in the personnel division. It's for terminated and retired employees of civilians and police and fire employees who are long no longer with us, like 60s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s terminations and retirements. We can't store them here because it's a fire hazard to put them across the street in the annex. So we need someone to take them away, store them for us, and put them on the cloud so that we can access them when we need to.
Thank you. In the resolution, it also spoke to a 2-day turnaround for documents that we need. Is there any way, in like the case of you need them quicker, would you be able to contact the company and get a quicker turnaround time than the 2 days?
So our plan in personnel is to take them, once they're on the cloud, to put them into Prime Point, which is the HRIS that we use. And then this way we won't even really need to contact them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, the resolution is approved. Okay, we now move to ordinances on first reading. Clerk, please read MC 2021-36 by title.
MC 2021-36 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 4, Schedule 2, no parking certain hours, North Avenue, to reduce the hours of no parking from Richmond Street to Tower Road.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis, please.
So while this ordinance reads from Richmond Ave to Terra Road on North Avenue, it looks like the only places that's really affected is the area right by the Netherwood train station in terms of the no parking. So 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., how would that affect like the residents who are going to live in that new development that's coming in that area?
This really should have no impact on the residents in that particular project. That project is providing parking for its tenants. So this resolution doesn't impact, or this ordinance doesn't impact the parking for the tenants. This really is to accommodate, we had a business relocate from Scotch Plains to Plainfield, Parker Plants and decorations, and certain times of the year during the holiday season, they have a lot of traffic and they would like to be able to have their employees park on this street.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions, Councilwoman Davis? Any other council colleague wish to ask questions on this ordinance on the first reading? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
This ordinance has been introduced on first reading. MC 2021-37 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 4, Schedule 1, No Parking, Paragraph 24, East 4th Street, to permit parking from Park Avenue 100 feet east and to prohibit parking 100 feet east to the New Jersey Transit train station driveway.
Okay, any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis, please.
So Director Childress, we kind of talked about this earlier, but and when in speaking to you, we talked about the safety component needed to eliminate those spaces. But I think my concern is that we're going to look to eliminate 4 spaces. And when we already have a problem with parking in that area and we have multiple businesses around, is there a way for us to compromise and maybe not take all 4 spaces, but we take maybe 1 or 2 spaces, and then we also enforce all of the illegal parking that's happening in that area?
Yes, I sympathize with the parking in that area. The fire department needs to have access for operational needs. The problem with enforcement is, yeah, it can be enforced, but at the time we may need it, may not be enforced at that particular moment. There's a possibility that, we could reassess it again, but it's really just for our operational needs. And I sympathize with the residents in their parking.
So when was this issue assessed?
Okay.
Yeah, can I add to that? There are 2 things that are being done with this ordinance. One is to provide the opportunity to have space for the fire department to connect to the building that's in front of one of the parking spaces. The other is a corrective action. We already have an ordinance on the books that says that you can't park within 100 feet of Park Avenue along the north side of East 4th Street. And so all this does is correct that. So that's where the other 3 spaces come into play.
So there's already a stop sign there. No, what is there? No, there's a light there. So I understand that we already had an ordinance on the books, but we spent how many years already not enforcing that ordinance? And I think my concern is still parking. And I understand the safety concern for the fire department. That's 1 space. Then we want to take 3 more spaces for an ordinance that we have not been enforcing in all of this time.
Yeah,
and I think that when we have a barbershop over there, we have a gym over there, we have a storefront that's now empty with a potential business to come over there. We have restaurants all in this area, and parking is already a problem and it's already a premium. It is not fair to the residents who live at 109 to potentially lose their parking in the parking lot because people who are patronizing the businesses now want to park there. It's not fair to the people who are patronizing the businesses to not have any place to park. And I understand that if the director needs 1 space for safety, that's absolutely a great compromise, especially when people illegally park in one of the spaces anyway, well, in something that's not even a space anyway. But to take away 3 more spaces because we have an ordinance on the books that we haven't been enforcing is not fair to the residents.
Well, the ordinance is on the books for a reason. The ordinance was on the books for a safety issue at that corner of Park. And so if you want us to do additional traffic studies or whatever was put in place originally, we certainly will do that. As it relates to the businesses have approved parking. So each business has a parking requirement per our zoning ordinance that they must meet in order to open their business. And so for some of these shops, and I certainly would go back and look at that information, but we have regulations associated with parking requirements for businesses.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, can I have a roll call?
Roll call on MC 2021-37, council members Davis,
No.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. This ordinance has been introduced on first reading. Now come to ordinance MC 2021-38. It's an ordinance of the city of Plainfield adopting a redevelopment plan for a portion of the UEZ rehabilitation area.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Moved. Moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, this. Is,
Don't ordinances typically have to have a roll call vote?
I'll let the clerk. We need
Yes,
a roll call on these.
yes, we
You
do.
can do a roll call then, yeah. All right, Clerk.
That was moved by Vice President Good, seconded by Councilman Mills Ransom. Roll call on MC 2021-38, council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. This ordinance has been introduced on first reading. We now come to MC 2021-39 is an ordinance of the city of Plainfield and the county of Union authorizing the citing of certain cannabis-related businesses within the city, amending the land use and development ordinance and any redevelopment plans inconsistent herewith, and establishing certain regulations and requirements for cannabis businesses.
Okay, questions from council members? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Roll call MC 2021-39, council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been introduced on first reading. MC 2021-40 is an ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 17, the land use ordinance of the city of Plainfield by adding Article 9, Section 7:9-30A, food vehicles.
Questions from council members?
I just have a couple of comments here and if I recall from the last council meeting, one of the goals was to encourage food trucks, and we got all these food trucks that are coming in and we want to give them a place to go. I just don't know how 10 pages of regulations encourages anybody to want to do anything other than go to another town. And I also am really confused because we went to all this conversation last time about the public-private issue and this segment, the 2 areas that are designated for this, but yet we're tripping over ourselves again in section 2. Sorry, C. Well, it's C, the old 2 that was blocked out, that talks about the locations notwithstanding, and below that in number 3 in bold it says stationary food vehicles are permitted on private property provided that written property owner's consent is submitted. But then you go down to the new number 4, and it said Plainfield residents may request authorization to have a licensed food vehicle in their driveway, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for special occasions. So now the way we're doing this is residents are going to have to go and get some sort of license to have a food truck in their driveway for their daughter's birthday party when they got a bouncy house or something, is really what we're doing. We're tripping over this. We're not even going to be able to enforce this, because on one hand they submit a note, and on the other hand the resident has to request authorization. I think we're all over the place on this. I don't fully understand what the intent is, other than to add 10 pages of regulations. I'll take that back. That's not fair. 9. The next one just has 2 words on it. I just think this is going to be a mess, and I think we didn't get it right this time. Unfortunately, because we don't have the planning, the business sessions anymore, agenda setting sessions anymore, you're forced to go through the entire agenda and read everything. And I didn't really get to dig into this to find the other pitfalls that are going to come in. I think this is loaded with just all kinds of issues that we're going to spend time either citing food trucks or having to rewrite this damn thing constantly.
So I want to say that I respectfully disagree with Councilman McKenna and how he reads number 4. So it says that residents can request for special occasions, but is it possible for the food truck to request it on behalf of the resident if they know that they're going to that place? Like, who is the onus going to be on if that's not requested? Is it going to be on the resident, or is it going to be on the food truck? Because this ordinance sounds like the responsibility is on the food truck business either way. But my only concern, Jay, in section 3 is that same only. Right. So, Mr. Mancello, I just want your recommendation, or what are your thoughts on section C, number 3? Does that first only occupy city designated spaces? Does that negate the part that's in bold in that section?
Can you direct me again to the section you're referring to?
So it's on page 8. It's under section C, operational regulations and restrictions, number 3.
The new 3?
Yes.
And 3.
The new 3, you want me to read the section and define the only for you?
So does that first only negate the part that's in bold about food trucks being able to be on private property with the owner's written permission?
I think you're trying to get him to square the bold part with number 4.
No,
No.
where the bold part with the first only in that section.
While we give Mr. Mancello a chance to look at that.
I'm gonna have to, that's a more involved answer. If I could have a few moments to read the section in context, and then I'll attempt to answer your question, Councilwoman.
Okay, we got nothing but time. We're here.
All right.
And I will answer the question about residents wanting food vehicles within their driveway. Residents today, when they want to do something on their property, such as a garage sale or all of those kinds of things, have to get permission from the city to do that. And so this is no different, that if you're having an event and you would like to have a food truck at your event, is just letting the city know and agree that you can have this food truck at your event. So we're put on notice that there will be additional traffic around this particular area.
So this is tripping over itself, because earlier in the ordinance, it acts as if private property is an agreement between the property owner and the food truck person.
Maybe that should be private commercial property, because that's what it's in reference to. So what it means with the private property is not for single family homes. Go ahead, Counselor, you're raising.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll go next. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay.
Director.
No, so maybe we should add commercial property owners, because that's what it really is referencing. So anyone with a mixed use building, anyone with a commercial property only, or a multifamily business that wants to allow a food truck on their property would have to give written consent to that, and on a regular basis, and provide that to the zoning officer.
So, Councilwoman Davis, I've reread section 3, and I don't see any contradiction in the language whatsoever as I read it. As I read it, there are certain designated areas as set forth by the city, and it may only exist in those areas. However, it may exist on private property with the express approval of the private property owner.
Okay,
So I don't read those as being in conflict with each other at all.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me get this right. If a food truck wants to park on West Front in a parking spot and sell whatever they're selling, enchiladas or whatever, they really can't do that according to this, because that would be public property. And they
Right.
would have to be in one of these designated spots, which are pretty much on the east side. Oh, and
Yes, however, if you're having an event at your home and you'd like to have a food truck for a special occasion, you can do that.
With
You
a
can certainly
permit.
do that with permission of the property owner by filing an application with the clerk's office.
I think this is just 10, 8, 9 pages of discouraging food trucks, but okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Ordinance has been introduced on first reading. Now come to ordinance MC 2021-41. It's an ordinance making a second amendment to the TODN North Avenue redevelopment plan to permit light industrial use in the Train-Side Commercial District along North Avenue.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Director Jackson, can you just explain like what's the rationale for the change? And also can you provide examples of light industrial use?
Okay, so when we presented this the last time to be amended, I thought we took care of this on both sides of the street in terms of light industrial. Apparently, we didn't do that. Warehousing might not be considered light industrial. Light industrial. So in this case, light industrial would allow for a cannabis cultivator to be on North Avenue in a highly industrial area for the most part. So that's what it allows for. So it was not our intent to leave this side of the street out, but we do want to include this side of the street in case that there is a cannabis operator that would like to operate in the light. Cannabis cultivation classes 1 through 4 can only be done in light industrial areas in the city of Plainfield based on our prior ordinance as well as on our amended ordinance. What this does is correct a side of the street that should have been light industrial in the first place. When we amended it, that did not occur. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So move.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been introduced on first reading. Now come to MC 2021-42. It was an ordinance amending the schedule of salaries and wages adopted pursuant to Article 14, Chapter 11 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plainfield, New Jersey, 1971.
Questions or comments from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Can we just provide context to this conversation? When are the times that we can amend these salaries? I know that there's only a particular time for the mayor, but what are the timeframes in which salaries can be amended for these elected positions?
I can certainly address that, Council President. Councilwoman Davis, the mayor's salary may not be increased or decreased during his term. So therefore, the actions that we take in 2021 cannot go into effect until 2022, which will be the start of a new term. As for council, it can be done annually. And it corresponds to the budget year, and that's set forth in the charter. So for the mayor, it would be every 4 years. For the council, it can be done annually. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think it was important to provide that context because I know a lot of residents had questions about maybe the timing of this and why it happened after the election, but not just this mayor, but every mayor. It cannot happen during a mayoral term. It has to happen at the end of one term before the beginning of the next term.
That is completely correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think my next comment or concern is at what point do we say this is the threshold for a part-time salary, right? Like at what point do we say that, okay, we've reached a threshold and maybe we need to conduct a charter change to change this position to a full-time position? I think that that's a concern for a lot of residents. I think that's something that this body needs to consider in making these decisions. Like, what is the threshold that says, okay, this is enough for part-time work? And what is the threshold that says that this is enough for that we need to now move to full-time? Is it a salary threshold? Is it a population threshold? Like, at what point do we say, hey, maybe we need to appeal to the legislator about changing the charter to change this from a part-time position to a full-time position?
Councilwoman, if I could just address the issue of part-time. I challenge anyone, council member, member of the public, to find anything in the charter or code that says anything about part-time. It doesn't exist. It doesn't say anything about the position being part-time. If you get a call from a constituent at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you can't tell them you're off the clock. The job of an elected official is a 24/7 job, and there's nowhere in the code to speak of or the charter that refers to it as a part-time job. I've looked for that, and I haven't found that. And I think that as an elected official yourself, you know that it's much more than a part-time job.
I don't disagree with you about what these hours or these parameters are around like part-time and full-time. I don't disagree with you in that. But are you saying that the charter does not speak to a part-time or full-time position for the mayor?
Correct. The charter and the code do not put any hour requirements, do not say it is a part-time or full-time. It's just the job of mayor, whatever it takes to run this city, to act as the the individual in charge of the day-to-day operations of the city. That's what it is. If it's 24 hours a day, that's what the job requires.
Oh.
Are you
Simon,
done, Councilwoman?
Any other questions? Looking for
Yeah,
questions.
I have some comments here, and I think Councilwoman Davis's points are well meant, and I understand where she was going with that. But I think that one thing we need to understand is that these are not really jobs. And I think when we talk about how they're full-time or part-time, they're not jobs. This is public service. We chose to run for this. Some, most, all, maybe whatever, put our own money into running for these positions. We all had careers or were retired when we ran, so we were getting pensions and Social Security, and we did this to give back to our communities, which is what people do. The $15,000 a year salary, I guess you call it now, is a stipend to offset, getting that call at 10:30 at night or 11 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, or going out in snowstorms and doing that. But that is why we did this. We did this to give back to our communities. We did not do this so that we could increase our salaries and make more money and have, just get more taxpayer money. That is not what this is all about. And I think that for those of us who vote for this really missed the point of the whole civics presentation earlier. I thought the timing of that couldn't have been any better. I mean, we are, first of all, we have elected officials driving vehicles without council permission. We have, most of the council has half their wardrobe provided by taxpayer money with embroidered logos on it. 4 years ago, the mayor got over 100% raise. The council got over a 50% raise. Now the council is going to get a 65% raise and the mayor's going to get 13%. That's embarrassing. This is why people hate politics. This is why people hate politicians. This is why people hate government. It's just, this is gross. This is absolutely gross. And the reason for those who are wondering that called in, the reason it occurs after the election is because it has to be done in 2 readings and then it takes effect in 20 days when people are sworn in next year, or we begin our next term of council, which happens in January when we reorg. So that's why this occurs. If this is such a great idea, then Councilwoman Welch should have mentioned it when she was running for election. And the mayor should have mentioned it in all of his advertisements when he was running, that he thinks he needs a raise. The reality is he knows it's not great. He knows people hate it. He knows it's inappropriate. That's why they wait until after the general election. So I'm voting as adamantly against this as I possibly can. And if this passes on the second reading, I am not taking the raise. I am not taking it. You can make, I'll sign something to the city. You adjust the payroll deductions or credits that are done and keep it in the city. This is embarrassing.
Council President, can I speak for a second on some of the things that were brought up?
Sure.
So Councilman McKenna just mentioned that it would be 13% for the mayor, and that would be over the course of a 4-year period. He's going back to 2018. But I just want to stress that this goes, like we talked about, this can only be done at a certain time in the year. It cannot be done for the next 4 years for the mayor. So we're talking actually about an 8-year stretch of time, 13% over 8 years, which comes down to actually even less than inflation.
Can you do that math? What's with the 4 and the 8? Next year, he's going to get it in January. He would get a 13% raise.
Right, so he'll end at that same salary 4 years from now.
Oh, I don't care what he ends at. I'm saying that it's going to be a 13% increase.
Okay.
Right, but it's for an 8-year period.
But the director,
It's not. It's for a 4-year period. His last one was a 4-year period.
So I watched the last council meeting, and what I noticed in there was 2 of the council people who had voted against it had mentioned that this is something that should be done progressively, but because it wasn't done progressively, it snowballed to such a big number that they weren't comfortable. So what we're trying to do is course correct and now do this on a progressive basis so that it doesn't become such a shocking number, as was mentioned last time.
So
again,
but that being said, how did you get to 65%? That's not gross.
Can I speak?
hold on, let her continue to speak. She was speaking. Stop interrupting.
So,
Council President, I call the question.
If she's, do you still want to say some words?
yeah,
The question. I call the question.
Council President, was there a motion made? Because it's my understanding of Robert's rule, the person who makes the motion can call the question.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Council President, I think we should let the VA finish what she was saying.
Okay, I'm fine with that. She was mid-sentence and she was interrupted. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you. So I just wanted to also mention that in the last time that there were salary increases on the agenda, the then business administrator had presented some salary comps for similarly situated municipalities. I checked those salary comps today, and those salaries have actually gotten even higher. So municipalities like Irvington, East Orange, Perth Amboy, Linden, all those municipalities that are similarly situated to us, those mayors and those councils are making still significantly more even after this proposed ordinance, if it were to be passed. So we're still looking at numbers like 123,000, 141,000, 48,000 for council. We're still looking at much bigger numbers in similarly situated municipalities. And again, I just want to say, when you look back and look forward to 2026, a lot of this comes out to being pretty much on par with inflation. And again, not to berate the the conversation about, is this full-time, is this part-time? But we all know that, you know, all of you and the mayor himself are working around the clock. The mayor's here, you know, he usually comes in around 5:30, 6 o'clock. He's here till 11, and he's here early in the morning as well. So especially now when a lot of meetings are done on Zoom, you know, he's working all day for the city. So I just wanted to make sure that all of those points were put out there for everyone to be aware before we went to a vote.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your input. Any other questions or comments from council colleagues?
I just have one more comment since nobody else does. I think comparing ourselves to the rest of the state is ridiculous too, because these are not jobs. This is public service. And the rest of the state is about as corrupt as you could possibly get, which is why our taxes are the highest in the country. So the fact that the county commissioners gave themselves yet another raise, I think they just did it 2 years ago, is just ridiculous. It's like pigs at a trough, and no wonder our taxes are so high and we get such a terrible reputation.
Yeah. We certainly note that as a city, and that this council hasn't raised taxes for 2 years. And I know that there's a commitment to continue that trend, especially in light of the pandemic and so forth. So,
Council President,
yes, go ahead. Go right ahead.
I believe Corporation Council is trying to say something.
Oh, no, thank you, Councilman Good. I was just waiting my turn. I just wanted to acknowledge for the council president, there was a question regarding Councilman McCray's calling of the question. That was a valid motion at the time in which he made it. And if the council president seeks a second, that would be the appropriate time. It would be the appropriate time because that was an appropriate motion.
Okay. So I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Okay, clerk, can I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
No.
McKenna,
1,000 times no.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
It's 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion passes.
Okay. A total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all public comments to be presented. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. The floor is now open. Hopefully the individuals that did not get a chance to speak earlier gets a chance to speak. So hopefully we can hear some new folks before we hear anybody who might have duplicative comments. Okay, Mr. Scruggs.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I did speak before. Thank you for letting me speak again. I'm just wondering, is there a way that a private citizen like myself who pays taxes can make suggestions for safety changes and procedures in my neighborhood? I live on a 125 Lafayette Place in Plainfield. Most of the people who live here are renters. There's parking on both sides of the street. And to get an emergency vehicle through is actually impossible. To get snow removal, I had to call Councilman Good and they had to send a smaller truck up here. I would like to figure out how we can get it, the street to be just parking on one side of the street. I've been in conversation with Councilman Good for about a year now, and I understand things take time, but I'm just wondering what can I do? What needs to happen? How can we move this forward? Second thing is there's commercial vans parking on Front Street. So when I get to the corner, I cannot see out. There's going to be an accident. It's going to be bad. And I just wanted to give voice to that commercial vans shouldn't be allowed to park, and certainly not 2 commercial vans at the end of the street obstructing the view. And my last point is a question about public service construction. I live in the West End, which is not as fabulous as the East End. And I got at 7 o'clock in the morning, there was the gas company was tearing up the street on a weekday. And I'm just wondering, what is the legal time when noise like that can be made? I got a feeling this would not happen in Netherwood. So I feel like I'm paying taxes. I live in the West End. I live on Lafayette Place. It's a little dead end street. A lot of days I can't get up the street because of parking on both sides. So I would like to know how I can institute some kind of change. And I feel like this is just a monologue. So I talk and then you move on to the next person. I get that. But
No,
what can I do?
in this instance, I'd like to get your questions down, and once the residents get to speak, then I'll have the directors answer some of those questions. So a couple of the questions were for Captain Guarino in terms of the safety issues. I'm just gonna, see if he needs clarification on the streets or that you were referring to. But we'll do this at the end, just to not take up the public's time in terms of their opportunity to speak now. But did you hear everything, Captain, in terms of the?
Council President, may I say something real quickly?
I did.
I will continue to be in touch with those directors involved on behalf of Mr. Scruggs.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Council President, if I could, we have a procedural issue. I'd recommend that we suspend public comments and go back to to ordinances on first reading. There was a motion made by Councilman McCray to call the question. The motion was seconded. We then needed a roll call for that motion. After that, we then need to have a motion to adopt the ordinance, a second, and a roll call. That never took place. What we did was just the motion on the question to call to order, to call the question rather. So I would recommend that we suspend public comments and go back to the ordinance, and we need a motion and a second.
Okay, do we need a motion to suspend public comment?
Yes.
I move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Public comment is now suspended. Now can we have a motion and a second on, what was the resolution?
MC 2021-42.
So move.
Can we have a second?
Second.
And now can we have a roll call?
Roll call MC 2021-42, Council members Davis,
No.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
I believe she stepped out.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
It's 4 in favor, 2 opposed. The ordinance has been introduced on first reading.
All right, thank you. We'll now resume public comment. Okay, thank you for that comment, Ms. Councilman Good, regarding following up with Mr. Scruggs. Okay, Ms. Montfort, name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Name is Kim Montfort. Address is 1345 East 2nd Street, of course, Plainfield.
Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. I have 2 comments to make. One, I'm going to lead off with, happens to be about PMUA failure. Because people do forget or fail to pass positive information forward, let it be said that when the PMUA was established, it was done so at the request of the residency of Plainfield, because the streets were littered with bulk and garbage, especially in secluded areas of the city. Remember that the PMUA was given high praises for its cleaning up of the city of Plainfield. So the best I can say about that is how quickly many of authority and the public forget. All need to remember that failure rises to the top. Executive level of management for the PMUA has been identified, selected, and approved by the City Hall with advice and consent of council, inclusive of the commission. The question here is now with regard to failure, what was the criteria for selection? I'm going to leave that at that. Now about MC 2142 salary adjustments. Okay, as a result of, I disagree with this adjustment for now. Racing, and this is the reason why, racing of cars and motorcycles up and down public streets, including loud, excessive exhaust system noises, and soon the snowmobiles will be coming in. We got mentally challenged individuals are wandering on public streets, often influenced by alcohol. Nothing's being done about either of those two. Inner city protocol for safety and environmental peace is not being considered. However, areas for development along the rail line is. So we're going to have a beautiful city going up and down the railroad track, but inner city is a mess. It may be that soon council members, respond well. However, fabricate, I'm talking about the return of calls and answering of questions. There may be some council members that respond well with that service. However, fabrications by others have been used to excuse themselves for not returning calls. Now, as far as the 2140, really, you want to pigeonhole food trucks, but you allow racing vehicles to run up and down the streets wild. And with Mr. Councilwoman McKinney, I agree with quite a bit of everything that you said about many issues. I would like to speak to you about some of that. And, that's really all I have to say. I try to keep it in bullets to keep it short and sweet, but I don't agree with the salary adjustment until I see improvements on the items that I just mentioned, especially the motorcycles and the cars and the racing up that street. But somebody going to get hurt. Somebody going to get killed because they don't pay attention to do pinwheels in the middle of intersections. And nothing is being done about it. And I don't want to hear nothing about, well, we can't chase them. Well, you need to find out what these other municipalities are doing to eliminate that type of events in their communities. And I'm really getting tired of Plainfield being compared to East Orange and Newark and all of that. Everything is local, everything. And it would be nice to be like Orange, Newark, or wherever, Bedminster, but we are not. We are the city of Plainfield, and we seem to be forgetting that. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mofford.
Okay.
Name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Sure. Janice Fleming, 521 Woodland Avenue. So I just have to say that it is disheartening that the salary increases are not tied to performance. The fact that you are comparing us to other cities I think is so irrelevant. It's performance. It is performance. I'm flabbergasted. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And so you are forcing us to pay for increases in your salaries that we do not believe are warranted. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. And it is just, it's heartbreaking. I've been a resident here for over almost 25 years. And I'm just astounded. So, and it is embarrassing. It is very embarrassing. There's so much that needs to be done in this city, and the fact that you feel justified in your pay increases. I don't care, 13%, whatever percent, 50%, it's very disheartening. It really is. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Borsa, name and address for the record.
Lilas Borsa, 1046 Hillside Avenue, Plainfield, 07060. I just want to reiterate what other residents have said and say how disappointed or how much against or oppose MC 2021-42 I am. While I thank you all truly, and I don't attend these meetings, I've probably attended one when it was animal related. I am impressed by the attention that you all pay. And I am impressed by the public service that you all have committed to. And that's the word, it's a commitment. The nature of the job is one of giving back to the community. And whether it is a full-time position or a part-time position, it's a position of honor. Whether many of us in town volunteer, whether we are at the food bank, whether we are doling out food, we give back to the community. You've chosen to give back to the community by way of being an elected official. And while I did hear the BA say and give comparisons as to what other communities are doing, none of that had any justification as to why we need to have a salary increase. Just because somebody else is doing it, and others have said it, where is the benchmarking? What has improved between the 2017 and now? Has the nature of the position changed? Has the amount of workload changed? I don't believe it has. And I don't think you've considered, and again, I'm very disappointed in the 5-2 vote. I applaud the 2 no's. What I would ask is, have you considered how this is going to affect many residents in Plainfield, meaning the people who really can't afford your salary increase? Because if the landlord gets the increase by way of taxes, they're going to pass that increase onto their residents, onto their renters, the ones who can least afford it. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attention.
Mr. Goldstein, name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening again. Alan Goldstein, 939 Madison Avenue. I wanted to throw out a number that you might keep in the back of your mind as talk of dissolving PMUA or not heads forward. And that's a $14 million net pension liability. So you could stew about that for a little bit, but I really wanted to address this idea of dissolution because, as you all know, I've been a critic of PMUA and I've been a critic of the city relative to its relationship with PMUA. But I wouldn't call it a failed experiment, as the mayor has. I think excuse me, terming it that way, he's really distancing himself from the situation because this is deeply embedded and it goes back a long ways. So what I'd like to do is just take you back to a Thursday afternoon on January 1st, 1998, when Adrian Mapp took his oath of office and took the place of Al McWilliams, who had become mayor that day. And the council president at the time, and I'm reading from the minutes, as Laddie Wyatt had put them, he said the president said that he was thanking God that someone in the personage of Adrian Mapp was coming on council with accounting skills. Now, January 1st, 1998 is 10 weeks after the enactment of the interlocal agreement. And beginning in 1998, 10 weeks later, this agreement was corrupted. And it was corrupted in this sense. The city is supposed to pay disposal costs. The disposal costs were little over $800,000 that year. The city had capped out what it would pay ultimately at $1.2 million, which was 50% greater. The fraud was to surreptitiously, in the dark of night, turn this into a $1.2 million annual payment to the PMUA. Now, to get from $800,000 in disposal costs to $1.2 million, using any metric, would have taken a number of years. So the cost of this fraud enabled PMUA to get taxpayer money almost up to $2 million. Could be a little bit less, might be a little bit more. And that was the gist of the fraud. Now, also at what time, as this was going on, since the 5th official action of the PMUA board was they were paying themselves illegal compensation. That went on for 20 years. Now, the problem is, and I think Kim Monford kind of alluded to this in her comments just a short while ago, this wasn't a failed experiment, it was a corrupted experiment, and it was corrupted from the top down. And it involved a lot of different people. And I'm looking at 7 city council people tonight. You know, a few years ago it was a different set, but there was always enough lack of concern as to what was going on, and always enough friends who were in the mix being able to pocket the money, you know, whether it was through nepotism or some job of this sort or another. And I'm not taking anything away from people who work there every day and put in their sweat, but the problems are from the top down. And some of the players in this was the mayor. I'm not saying he was the sole player or if it was even his idea, but he's got a long-term relationship with PMUA that goes far beyond when he was the mayor. Now, the other thing is that you got a lot of issues ahead of you, regardless of what needs to be done. If you're going to dissolve it, it's totally in need of a forensic audit of some sort or another to know what it is you're getting, what it is that's there, and what it is that might fall out the back of a truck in the middle of the night. And I wouldn't trust any of the people who are involved in this at this point, because if you look at Lurch, Vinci, and Higgins, or McManaman and Scotland, say, as an instance, now you got Lurch, Vinci, and Higgins on both ends. You got the mayor's sister-in-law as the CFO over there, and his buddy Eric Jackson over there. He's got everybody on the board. And you're going to use the same people who corrupted this to now somehow put it back together? I don't believe it. And if you're public servants and you have an interest.
Council President, speaker's time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Always a wealth of information. Ms. Peterbar.
Yes, Nancy Pevar, 1129 Myrtle Avenue. First, I'd like to thank you for renewing the lease as the president of the Historical Society. It's been a 100-year public-private partnership, if people don't realize that. And citizens like myself and citizens like you have kept that house going for the past 100 years. And we look forward to the 250th, when we expect to have a lot of visitors to the city of Plainfield for the anniversary of the American Revolution. I'll take my hat off now, and I would like to back up what Mr. Scruggs said on Lafayette Place. I would hope that at some point in the near future, the city could take a look at what is going on from Plainfield Avenue to Grant Avenue and West End Avenue with the traffic. I've lived in this town all my life. The past couple of months have been awful trying to get out. We use Greenbrook Park as a way to access 22 and to go into downtown Plainfield. On the weekends, specifically on Sundays, it's awful. And even during the week, it's awful. You have to depend on courtesy of drivers to let you either exit right or exit left. And then if you're coming into the park, you have to depend on drivers to let you make the left-hand turn. The traffic is just horrendous. A number of calls have been made to the county police because people are parking too close to to the corners. I think at West End and Front Street, I think you need a turning lanes there for left or right. Cars park all the way up to Front Street, so you can only get one lane of traffic through. And I think that Mr. Scruggs is correct in his assessment on Lafayette Place. if there is an emergency, I've seen vehicles try to get down Front Street, and it's like one of those, it's like a road rally. I mean, it's like crash cars almost, because there's no place for people to go. A complete look at that intersection needs to be made, because this past Sunday, when I tried to exit left to go to Route 22, I decided there was no clear lines of sight for me as a driver, so I had to turn right and then go a completely opposite direction in order to get to 22. And I think Mr. Scruggs' assessment about safety is correct. And I'm glad that he spoke out, because I was gonna just let this go, but it's not good. And even during the weekdays between 4 and 6 p.m., it's a difficult time. Traffic backs up all the way down on West End Avenue to almost Myrtle Avenue in North Plainfield, and you can't access the park either direction. So I appreciate Mr. Scruggs speaking up, and I would hope that the police department will take a look at what's going on, especially on Sundays. It's just, there should be a traffic cop there so people can access it. In fact, I called my neighbor this weekend and let him know what the problem was, and he thanked me because he was going to go do errands, and he forgot too. So then he was able to go out of his driveway right and head west instead of heading east because of the traffic situation that's developed down in that little section of town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Fish, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Alan Fish. Address 1465 Brentwood Terrace, Plainfield. My concern is the Charles and Anna Booker School that's being built on Woodland. I've been working on that project for like 5 months now, and I'm a union worker. And my concern is the community people that's not on a job. Do they have any type of program where they're ensuring that community people and minority people are going to be on this project? Because I mean, since I've been there, I haven't seen anybody from the community, and except me. And I was recently laid off for falsely things that they said I'd done on the job. The only person that was on the job from the community. So I was just wanted to make sure that they have, if I don't get back on a job for my union, that they be liable for the community people and minority people getting on that job site. And also the program that they have, I think is, what is it at? I was looking in a what is it? The Construction Jobs Partnership Program. Do that have anything to do with the union jobs or the union job that's over there on the school? They need more people to enforce it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Fish. You know, I certainly share some of your concerns, but since it's school property, it doesn't fall under the purview of the city council. It's under the school board, but there are school board members who are on the call, who are hearing your concerns, and you can also voice it at a school board meeting. Those are valid concerns. Mr. Wyatt, name and address for the record.
That's Richard Wyatt, 826 Wadsworth Avenue. All right. Health professionals believe that depression, anxiety, and suicide rates rise during the holidays. The media often links suicides during this time of the year, the holiday blues. And what many believe was done to create excitement about your third term, you announced that the PMUA would be dissolved due to a 25-year failed experiment. Although, at minimum, the past 8 years, you were the mad scientist leading the experiment. You left employees that provide for their families with uncertainty and fear. I know that you're in the research stages, but a statement to the employees is greatly needed and would be appreciated. I spoke to several employees that were completely blindsided by this. Many that have records but were able to make a better living for themselves by having the opportunity to work for the PMUA. The questions that come to mind are, who are the commissioners? Who are the executive directors? Who appointed the executive directors and deputy directors? Like LeBron James, Mayor Matt, this is the team that you assembled. A fatal flaw in modern leadership is equating mistakes with failure. Pull in your thumb instead of pointing fingers. I personally do not have faith that the quality of services will be better for the city of Plainfield under your administration. Please handle this delicate situation with care. Council President, thank you for your time once again.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, name and address for the record. Floor is yours. Unmute yourself, Ms. Smith.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Cynthia Smith, 1431 Coolidge Street, Plainfield, New Jersey. I have to speak quickly now because I wasn't given the opportunity to speak earlier. And I do believe that the two things that I wanted to raise today were important. But I have a question for you guys, and you can answer it at the end. Being that this is a combined meeting with agenda fixing session and a regular meeting, is this would we have been given more opportunity to speak twice if they were separated versus one time? So to have all these residents on the phone and then say, oh, no, you have 30 minutes only. I don't think that's a good thing when people are taking their time to get on here and voice their concerns and be involved in the process. So you should think about that. Did you all combine the meeting? So now you give people less opportunity to speak up about issues that they're concerned about. With that being said, I have a question. Funding for these raises that you all voted for tonight, it's nothing said about where the funds are coming from. I hope it's not coming from the CARES Act, because we still have employees that have come to work every day and they have not received any hazard pay. Now, my union, we've been going back and forth with the administration, trying to find out why these employees that was deemed essential aren't receiving hazard pay. So before you guys sit there and nod yes to raises for yourself, find out about the monies that were due to employees that came out that put themselves at risk for the city of Plainfield, and they haven't received anything. And not only them, when I read a portion of the CARES Act, it said that payment should go to the lowest paid of employees first, that they're concerned with those guys. Well, what happened to the people that were working seasonal? I know they're lower paid. And why was the PMUA workers given such a lower amount than what the public works people did? Is anyone else's life more important than another person's life? I think not. So you guys need to find out about what's going on with that funding and see why they're doling it out for picking and choosing who gets it and who doesn't. And that's not right. So you all need to look at that. And if your funds is for your increases is coming from that, take care of your employees before you take care of yourselves. That's one thing I wanted to say. The last thing was about the PMUA. Yes, PMUA was brought into place because there was a lot of illegal dumping going on in the city of Plainfield. I was working in the division of inspections at the time. So we had dumping all over the place. People were just pull up to a vacant lot, dump off everything. And then now the city, everybody had to scurry around to get it up. So now when we're here today talking about getting rid of it and putting these people out of work, who's really done the study? Because you have the commissioners and you have the executive officers, and let's face it, when it was working well, it was working well. Nobody ever complained about the service at that time. They only complained about the amount. These employees came out and they stood up because they said they were being underpaid. That was never addressed, like someone else said earlier. They were being underpaid. Most of them not even making $15 an hour. So you people that's on here, making sure that you give yourself raises, think about these young men and women out here with families to take care of off of less than $15 an hour. Think about that. So now when they stood up, it seems like they're being retaliated against. That's what it seems like. And anytime anybody stands up for what's right, they look at a way to try to retaliate. And that's not right. If you all here are elected officials are Democrat elected officials. Democrats supposed to stand for what's going on with the unions. And for you guys to do the things and allow the things that's going on just because they stood up for themselves, it's not right. And you need to take a better look at it and find another way to go about it so that all of these Plainfield residents don't lose a job when they dissolve the PMUA. And also, I'm sure some money's out there that the citizens will have to bear the brunt of once you get rid of the PMUA in our tax dollars. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Seeing no additional individuals for public comment. Oh, no, we have one more. Ms. Burwinkle, name and address for the record.
Hi, Mary Bergwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. I would just like to say that I think that Kim Montford and Kim and I volunteered for years on the Plainfield Shade Tree Commission together. I thought she gave a very eloquent statement tonight. So I hope you all listen to her. And having lived in Plainfield for 39 years, I also lived here when the private haulers divided the city up into little groups. And the private haulers, like if someone didn't pay a monthly bill, they just drove on and the city was just a complete mess. So I'm not suggesting that everything is perfect with PMUA, but I will tell you that in the early 80s, when I moved here, the city was a mess and everybody ought to be thinking about what's going to happen, after this whole thing works itself out. And I can't imagine it can work itself out in less than a number of years because of the debt and everything else and the pension obligations that Mr. Goldstein suggested. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Sherry.
Hi, this is Julian Cherry, 192 Wiley Avenue. I want to bring this concern about Milt Campbell Park, and this is something that has been ongoing for the last 2 years that I've raised this concern. The grates in the park need to be consistently cleaned. Now, everybody lives on Wiley. We know that we live in a flood zone, but if Department of Public Works could come up with some type of system where they're consistently cleaning the grates so that every single time it rains, that we don't have to have this concern of whether it's going to either flood on our streets or that there's going to be debris coming in on our streets. So main concern is, can they get on a schedule so they're cleaning these grates consistently so I don't have to consistently bring this up to my councilwoman? Thank you.
Thank you. Director Dabney, please note that and let's follow up on that. Mr. Campbell, name and address for the record. Floor is yours.
I'm Campbell, 1404 Highland Avenue, Plainfield. Honorable President Hockaday, Honorable Vice President, Mr. Good, and all the other elected officials. It's a pleasure to see you all smiling tonight. I hope, first I'd like to thank the two council people for being the dissenting vote on the salary ordinance. I recall when this salary ordinance was brought up 4 years ago, there were a lot of cheerleaders for this ordinance, and I haven't heard one, not one. So I think this is a total disrespect for the public for all the voices you've heard tonight that they're not quite ready to reward you for your work, even though we appreciate it. And I just think that the timing is not right for this ordinance on behalf of the residents. I think this ordinance should have been introduced, voted on back in May, just before the June primary. That way you could have gotten maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people to weigh in on it, residents to weigh in on it, rather than a handful. To the Honorable Mayor, I think you're misreading the political tea leaves. If you look at the June primary, you only won by a slim margin. And if you look at if you fast forward to the general election, you lost 1 council seat and 3 Board of Education seats. So I think what the people are saying that they're not really happy with your performance. And based on that, I think you need to pump your brakes and take another look at this before you pass it on the second ordinance. On the second reading. And I think you need to be more cognizant of the fact that, you know, the people are speaking and nobody's come out and spoken in favor of you getting this raise. So I think if you continue to head down the path that you're headed, then your political goose is going to be cooked. Thank you very much, and I appreciate seeing. I hope you get your raise before Christmas, so you can enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kuntz. Name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Good evening again. This is Sharice Kuntz, 141 McKinley Place. I'd just like to again say that I am a little disappointed on the outcome of the first reading of the salary ordinance. I would hope that all of you who voted yes would, I see that this meeting is being recorded, that you would take another look at the video and listen to what the residents of the city are saying. I know that, you know, this is not a private sector job, but I just know, you know, and I've never worked in the public sector myself. I've always worked in a private enterprise. And I know every year before I get my raise, and I have a performance appraisal. And typically your raise is based upon your performance. So I'd like you to just take a listen to the things that the residents have been saying. And that's it about the salary ordinance. I'd like also, I mentioned earlier about a gentleman that I've seen sleeping on the corner of East 2nd and Berkman Street. You know, the weather is getting cold, and, you know, I really want to understand what the city is doing to provide shelter for the homeless. I mean, it really pained me when the first day that I rode past him and I saw him out there sleeping. It was cold, and he was just bunched up there on the corner, had a red blanket on his head. And, you know, most people who pass that corner, you know, you hear him talking, the guy with the red blanket on the corner. So, you know, I'd like to know that the city is doing something to address the homeless population, because it's starting to get cold. And this is just one person that I'm seeing. And I know that there are others out there, you know, and I just want to make sure that, you know, we are having some care, concern, compassion for those people who are out there in these streets, because it's getting cold. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Pamela Baker, name and address for the record. Floor is now yours.
Hi, yes, my name is Pamela Baker. Live at 1018 West 5th Street, Plainfield. And I have a question about the parking meters. I noticed that there's been an increase in the parking meters, but not on all the parking meters. There's an indication of how much it will cost to park there. And I was just downtown last week, and I'm in the back of in the big parking lot where you go to the Pacific meter and put in the number on the ground. The numbers are quite faded in the back of that parking lot. The numbers are faded, number one. And number two, when you go there to pay with your credit card, the system has all these green and red lines in them, and you can't pay. So I'm just trying to figure out, are they gonna update these meters? The ones that are on the street, on Front Street, to all let you know how many quarters or dimes that you need to place in them. And then also in the back of the buildings over there downtown, where that particular meter where you pay with the numbers on the ground, are they gonna paint the numbers so that you can really see what the numbers are, and also fix the machine where you're supposed to insert your credit card to pay for parking? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one, looking to see if anyone else shows up. Now entertain a motion to close public comment.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? Public comment is now closed. I don't know if there's any outstanding. I know Councilman Good is going to handle one issue. I would just like to, regarding the salary increases, I would like, if there's somebody that can speak on the impact to the budget regarding that. If they don't have it today, then for the next reading, if they could describe all to you what the impact of the budget of the salary raises would be.
Quite honestly, we don't know that, Council President, because it's next year's budget and we're the ones that do the budget.
Estimate.
Well, 10,000 times 7.
I was talking to the.
I mean, it's easy math.
No, I mean percentages in terms of,
Well, let me put it to you this way. When we were going to extend the free parking to help the businesses downtown, nobody wanted to do it because it was going to create a $30,000 hole in the revenue. But now we came up with 70,000 plus 15, $85,000 a year for our mugs. So there's that.
Councilman, if your question was, is the increased money going to come from the ARPA money, which was referenced before, it would not, it's not an ARPA related expense.
You talking to me?
no, she was talking to me.
No.
There was also a question from a community member regarding what was the source of the funds.
Pardon me, Council President. Can the BA repeat that? Because I didn't hear it.
I just want to clarify that the funds that would be used for salary increases, any salary increases, would not be ARPA related funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. They would be regular budgetary funds.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Thank you all. The meeting is now adjourned.